You've been diving deep into the world of diabetes and healthy eating. Brought a really interesting mix of sources to the table. We've got practical advice from the CDC, in-depth insights from the Mayo Clinic, and a UK perspective from Diabetes UK. Our mission, to help you create a personalized roadmap to eating well with diabetes, without feeling overwhelmed or restricted.
It is amazing how much information is out there. Sometimes sorting through it all can feel like a challenge in itself.
Absolutely. So let's dive right into these sources and see what we can unpack. One thing that jumps out is this idea of a diabetes diet, which Diabetes UK sets straight right away. There's no such thing as this one magic diet. It's really about understanding the principles of healthy eating that apply to everyone.
I think that's a really good point. It really reframes the way we think about managing diabetes through diet. It's not about deprivation, it's about making informed choices that fit into a healthy lifestyle overall.
That makes a lot of sense. And it
Yeah.
feels a lot more sustainable that way too. So what are some of those universal principles we should be focusing on?
Well, the CDC and Mayo Clinic both emphasize the importance of blood sugar control. They explain that what we eat directly impacts our blood sugar levels, and keeping those levels stable is crucial for avoiding those long-term complications that can come with diabetes.
So it's about being mindful of how our food choices directly affect our blood sugar.
Precisely. And it's not just about avoiding certain foods altogether. All three sources, the CDC, Mayo Clinic, and Diabetes UK, emphasize the importance of enjoying a variety of nutritious foods in balanced amounts.
That's reassuring. So it's not about feeling deprived. It's about finding that balance. The Mayo Clinic also mentions that. For those with type 2 diabetes, weight management is a key factor, and a healthy eating plan can play a big role in that.
Absolutely. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it highlights how a healthy eating approach can have a ripple effect on overall well-being, not just blood sugar management.
It's like a win-win situation. Taking care of your blood sugar and potentially getting some weight management benefits along the way. Now, Diabetes UK breaks down healthy eating into 5 main food groups, which feels familiar, but I'm curious if there are nuances within each group that are especially relevant to managing diabetes.
Yeah, you're spot on. They highlight fruits and vegetables, starchy foods, protein, dairy, and oils and spreads. But each category comes with some important considerations.
Okay, let's break those down. Fruits and veggies seem pretty straightforward. Low calorie, full of nutrients, and packed with fiber, which I know helps to slow down sugar absorption.
Exactly. But there's a common misconception that fruit should be avoided because of the natural sugars, and Diabetes UK debunks that myth. They explain that moderate fruit consumption as part of a balanced diet is actually beneficial.
That's good to know, because I definitely love my fruit. What about the starchy food group? Things like bread, pasta, and rice.
Starchy foods provide energy, but the key here, especially for managing blood sugar, is choosing those with a low glycemic index, or GI.
Could you explain quickly what the glycemic index is and why it matters for someone with diabetes?
Of course. The glycemic index basically measures how quickly a food raises your blood sugar level. Foods with a high GI cause a rapid spike in blood sugar, while low GI foods release glucose more slowly, leading to more stable blood sugar levels.
So for someone managing diabetes, choosing low GI options is important for keeping those blood sugar levels steady.
Precisely. So instead of white bread, opt for whole grain. Instead of white rice, go for brown rice. Small swaps, but they can make a big difference.
Got it. What about protein? It seems pretty straightforward. Lean meats, fish, beans, lentils, all essential for muscle mass and overall health.
You've hit the nail on the head. And then there's dairy, which provides calcium for strong bones and teeth. Opt for lower fat options to manage your intake of saturated fats.
Makes sense. Last but not least, oils and spreads. We all need some healthy fats.
Oh, absolutely. But moderation is key here. Diabetes UK emphasizes that healthy fats, like those found in olive oil, avocados, nuts, and seeds, are beneficial for heart health. So olive oil instead of butter, nuts and seeds instead of chips.
Okay, I see the pattern here. We have our 5 food groups, we understand the basic principles, and we're making smart choices within each group. But how do we know how much of each group to eat? This is where I start to get a little lost.
That's a common question. Both the CDC and the Mayo Clinic highlight 2 strategies that are incredibly helpful: carb counting and the plate method.
Carb counting sounds a bit tedious, to be honest.
It might sound daunting at first, but it's not about restriction, it's about awareness. Carbs have the most significant impact on blood sugar levels, so keeping track helps you manage those levels more effectively.
That's helpful to know. I'm all for being aware, but I'm not much of a numbers person, so I'm intrigued by this plate method you mentioned. Is that really like a cheat sheet for portion control?
It is. The CDC uses this great visual tool to make it super easy. Imagine your standard 9-inch dinner plate. You fill half of it with non-starchy veggies, like broccoli, spinach, or green beans.
So veggies take center stage. What about the rest of the plate?
1/4 of your plate is for lean protein, such as chicken, fish, tofu, or beans. And the final quarter is dedicated to your carb foods, like those low GI options we talked about.
Okay, that makes it so much easier to visualize those portions. But I'm terrible at eyeballing portion sizes.
Mm.
Are there any tricks for getting it right?
The CDC article actually offers a clever solution, using your hand as a guide. For example, a 3-ounce serving of meat is about the size of your palm, a 1-cup serving of fruit is about the size of your fist, and a tablespoon is about the size of your thumb tip.
Okay, that's actually really helpful. I can definitely see myself using that. So we're getting the hang of portion sizes. We're understanding our food groups. We're making smart choices within each group. What else is there to consider?
Well, even with all of this knowledge, sticking to a plan can be tricky when eating out. The Mayo Clinic acknowledges this and provides some excellent strategies for navigating restaurant menus and making healthier choices.
Yeah, that's where I tend to struggle. It feels so much harder to make healthy choices when you're not the one in control of the cooking.
One tip they suggest is asking for half of your portion to be boxed up to go right away. That way, you're less tempted to overeat.
Out of sight, out of mind, right? I like that.
Another tip is to choose grilled or baked dishes over fried options.
Makes sense. What about those diabetic labeled foods? Are they worth it?
That's where things get interesting. Diabetes UK highlights that it's actually illegal to label food as diabetic now, as there's no evidence these foods offer any benefit over eating a healthy, balanced diet.
So those labels are more about marketing than actual health benefits. Good to know.
Exactly. It's always best to focus on choosing whole, unprocessed foods whenever possible.
Okay, I feel like we've covered so much ground already. We've talked about the importance of blood sugar control, the 5 food groups, portion control, carb counting, the plate method, even some smart choices for eating out. What else is crucial to know?
One often overlooked aspect is hydration. The NDSS stresses the importance of staying hydrated throughout the day, with water being the best choice.
Water is essential, but what if you're craving something with a little more flavor?
The NDSS also suggests healthy beverage alternatives like unsweetened teas and coffee.
What about alcohol? It can be a bit tricky to navigate with diabetes.
You're absolutely right. The NDSS provides specific recommendations regarding alcohol, emphasizing moderation and outlining the potential impact on blood sugar, particularly for those on insulin or certain medications.
So if you choose to drink, it's crucial to be mindful of how it might affect your blood sugar levels.
Exactly. And a conversation with your doctor is always a good idea to understand what's safe for you. It seems like you're already starting to grasp the nuances of eating well with diabetes. What are your thoughts so far?
Wow, yeah. So much great information. It really does feel more manageable when you break it down like that. And actually, while we're talking, I'm remembering that we talked about low GI foods, but how do you even know what the GI of a food is?
That's a great question. The glycemic index ranks carbohydrates based on how quickly they raise your blood sugar level.
So a high GI food is going to spike my blood sugar faster than a low GI food.
Exactly. And while the concept of GI can be useful, both the CDC and Diabetes UK suggest focusing on overall healthy eating patterns rather than getting fixated on the GI of individual foods.
Okay, so don't stress about memorizing a bunch of numbers. Just stick with those general principles of choosing whole, unprocessed foods and prioritizing high-fiber options.
You got it. It's about the bigger picture, not obsessing over tiny details.
Yeah.
Now, while we're on the topic of details, one thing the CDC article mentioned that I found interesting was the distinction between portion size and serving size. They're not actually the same thing.
Wait, really? I thought those were interchangeable. What's the difference?
A serving size is a standardized amount of food, like 1 slice of bread or 8 ounces of milk. It's what you typically see listed on food labels. Portion size, on the other hand, is the amount of food you actually choose to eat at one time.
Oh, okay. So I could have a portion size that's bigger or smaller than the serving size listed on the label.
Exactly. And this is where things can get tricky, especially when eating out. The CDC points out that restaurant portions have gotten significantly larger over the years, often equaling multiple servings.
That's so true. Sometimes one entree could easily feed 2 people.
Right. And studies have shown that we tend to eat more when we're served more, which is why being mindful of portion sizes is crucial, especially for managing blood sugar levels.
Makes sense. So besides using those hand measuring tricks, are there any other strategies for keeping portion sizes in check?
The CDC offers a few practical tips. When eating out, ask for half your meal to be boxed up to go right away. At home, measure out snacks instead of eating straight from the bag. And during meals, keep serving bowls out of reach to reduce the temptation to go back for seconds.
All great strategies. I think we've covered pretty much everything from the sources. What are some key takeaways you think our listeners should really focus on?
Well, first and foremost, remember that there's no single diabetes diet. It's about adopting a healthy eating pattern that you can sustain long term.
And that pattern should be built around those 5 core food groups: fruits and vegetables, starchy foods, protein, dairy, and oils and spreads, with an emphasis on choosing whole, unprocessed options whenever possible.
Exactly. And don't forget about the power of simple food swaps. Small changes, like choosing whole grain bread over white bread, can make a big difference.
And when it comes to starchy foods, pay attention to the glycemic index and try to choose low GI options to help manage those blood sugar spikes.
Yes. Also, be mindful of portion sizes, both at home and when eating out. Those hand measuring tricks from the CDC can really come in handy.
Yeah, they really can. And don't forget about hydration. Water is your best friend. And if you choose to drink alcohol, do so in moderation. And be aware of how it might affect your blood sugar levels.
Great points. I think those are the most important things to remember.
It really is a lot to think about. But I'm already feeling more confident about making healthy choices. One thing I was wondering about, though, the sources didn't really talk much about snacking. Are snacks off limits when you're managing diabetes?
Oh, not at all. Snacking can definitely be part of a healthy eating plan with diabetes. It's all about choosing snacks strategically.
So what should we be looking for in a diabetes-friendly snack?
The key is to focus on snacks that provide a balance of protein, fiber, and healthy fats. This helps to keep your blood sugar stable and prevents those energy crashes.
So instead of grabbing a bag of chips, maybe opt for a handful of almonds and a piece of fruit.
Exactly. Or some Greek yogurt with berries, or a few whole grain crackers with hummus. Think of snacks as mini meals that contribute to your overall healthy eating plan.
That's a really helpful way to look at it. Not about depriving yourself, it's about making smart choices. What about meal timing? Does it matter when you eat when you have diabetes?
You know, that's something the Mayo Clinic touched on. They suggested that consistency in meal times can be beneficial for blood sugar management.
That's interesting. I never really thought about the timing of my meals making a difference.
It can. When you eat at roughly the same times each day, it helps to regulate your body's natural insulin response, and that can lead to more stable blood sugar levels.
So establishing a regular eating schedule could actually support blood sugar goals.
Precisely. Now, of course, life happens, and there will be times when you need to adjust your schedule, but aiming for consistency as much as possible can be beneficial.
Okay, that makes sense. We've talked about what to eat, how much to eat, and now when to eat. But what about those times when you're really craving something and willpower alone isn't enough? How do you deal with cravings?
That's a great question, and it's something that everyone struggles with from time to time. The first step is to try and identify the root cause of the craving. Are you truly hungry, or is it boredom, stress, or even just a habit?
Oh, I see. So if it's not actual hunger, maybe finding other ways to cope with those emotions or break those habits could be helpful.
Exactly. And if it is true hunger, make sure you're eating balanced meals and snacks that provide sustained energy and keep you feeling satisfied. That can go a long way in preventing those intense cravings.
So focusing on those low GI options and getting enough protein and fiber can help keep those cravings at bay.
Precisely. But let's be realistic. Even with the best intentions, cravings can still pop up. And it's okay to indulge occasionally, as long as it's done mindfully and in moderation.
What does mindful indulgence look like in practice?
It's about savoring every bite, paying attention to your body's signals of fullness, and choosing a portion size that aligns with your overall goals. Instead of mindlessly eating a whole bag of chips, portion out a small serving, and truly enjoy those chips.
So it's not about denying yourself, it's about being present and intentional with your choices.
Exactly. And remember, one small indulgence doesn't derail your entire progress. It's about the big picture and finding that sustainable balance.
This whole conversation is making me realize that everyone's journey with diabetes is so unique. There's no one-size-fits-all solution.
You're absolutely right. And that's why it's so important to work closely with your healthcare team, including a registered dietitian or certified diabetes educator, to create a plan that's tailored to your individual needs and preferences.
They can help you navigate the complexities of diabetes management and provide personalized guidance.
Exactly. They can also help you address any concerns or challenges you might be facing and offer strategies for overcoming those obstacles.
Speaking of challenges, one thing that I've personally struggled with is the social aspect of food. It can be tough to stick to your healthy eating plan when you're out with friends or attending social events.
I hear you. That's a common challenge. And it highlights the importance of finding strategies that allow you to enjoy social situations while still managing your diabetes effectively.
So what are some tips for navigating those social gatherings without feeling like you're missing out or restricting yourself?
Well, communication is key. Don't be afraid to talk to your friends and family about your needs and explain how they can support you. They might be more understanding and accommodating than you think.
That's a good point. Sometimes we assume the worst, but often people are happy to help if they know how.
Absolutely. Another helpful tip is to plan ahead. If you know you're going to a restaurant, check out the menu online beforehand and choose a dish that aligns with your goals.
That way you can avoid feeling pressured to make a decision on the spot when you're surrounded by tempting options.
Exactly. And if you're going to a potluck or party, offer to bring a dish that you know you can enjoy without compromising your health goals.
That's a great idea. It ensures that there's something you can eat without feeling restricted. And you might even inspire others to try something new and healthy.
Exactly. And remember, it's okay to indulge occasionally. The key is to make conscious choices and find that balance that works for you.
These are all such practical and empowering tips. I feel much more equipped to handle those social situations now.
I'm so glad to hear that. Remember, managing diabetes doesn't mean you have to miss out on life's pleasures. It's about making informed choices and finding ways to enjoy those experiences while staying true to your health goals.
So we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, from understanding the basics of healthy eating to navigating social situations and managing cravings. What are your final thoughts as we wrap up this part of the conversation?
I think the most important takeaway is that managing diabetes through healthy eating is an ongoing journey, not a destination. It's about making gradual changes, finding what works best for you, and celebrating the small wins along the way.
And remember, you don't have to do it alone. There are so many resources available to support you, including your healthcare team, registered dietitians, and certified diabetes educators. Don't hesitate to reach out for guidance and support when you need it.
Absolutely. And as you continue on this journey, stay curious, keep learning, and don't be afraid to experiment. The more you know about how food affects your body, the more empowered you'll feel to make choices that support your overall well-being.
Well said. This deep dive has been incredibly informative and inspiring. I feel like I have a whole new toolkit for navigating the world of diabetes and healthy eating.
That's fantastic to hear. Now, as we move towards the final part of our conversation, let's shift gears a bit and explore something that hasn't come up explicitly in the sources, but it's incredibly important: the mental and emotional side of living with diabetes.
That's an interesting point. We've talked a lot about the practical aspects of food and nutrition, but managing diabetes goes beyond just the physical, right?
Absolutely. Living with diabetes can be challenging, both physically and emotionally. It's important to acknowledge those challenges and find ways to cope with the emotional ups and downs that can come with the territory.
So how can our listener address those mental and emotional aspects of diabetes management? What are some strategies for finding that balance and maintaining a positive outlook?
Well, I think one of the most important things is to be kind to yourself. You know, diabetes is a complex condition, and there are going to be days when you feel frustrated, overwhelmed, or even discouraged. It's okay to have those feelings. Just don't dwell on them.
Yeah, it's so easy to get caught up in that negative self-talk. But focusing on self-compassion can make a big difference.
It really can. And you know, something else that can be incredibly helpful is connecting with others who understand what you're going through. Whether that's joining a support group, finding an online forum, or even just talking to a close friend or family member, it can make a world of difference to know you're not alone in this journey.
Absolutely. Sometimes just having someone to listen and validate your feelings can be so powerful.
Exactly. And beyond connecting with others, it's important to find healthy coping mechanisms that work for you. It could be anything from exercise or spending time in nature to journaling, meditation, or pursuing hobbies that bring you joy.
So it's about taking care of your mental and emotional well-being just as much as you take care of your physical health.
Precisely. It's all interconnected. When you feel good emotionally, it's easier to make healthy choices for your body. And when you take care of your physical health, it often has a positive impact on your mood and emotional well-being.
I love that. It's about creating that holistic sense of well-being where all aspects of ourselves are in harmony.
Exactly. And if you find that you're really struggling to manage the emotional side of diabetes, don't hesitate to seek professional help. Talking to a therapist or counselor who specializes in diabetes can be incredibly beneficial.
Yeah, that's such an important reminder. There's no shame in reaching out for support when you need it.
Absolutely not. In fact, it's a sign of strength and self-awareness. Remember, managing diabetes is a journey. There will be ups and downs. But with the right knowledge, tools, and support, you can create a life that's both fulfilling and healthy.
That's a great message to end on. I think we've covered so much ground in this deep dive, and I hope our listeners are feeling empowered to take charge of their health.
Me too. It's all about making gradual changes, finding what works best for you, and celebrating those small victories along the way.
And remember, you don't have to do it alone. There are so many resources available to support you on your journey.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into diabetes and healthy eating.
Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep taking care of yourselves.